Hi, this is Jody Bach, Dean of LifeWorks University. What do you suppose is one of the most important principles of success for anyone who looks back on their life and career? What do you suppose they might say? I bet there are a lot of things people would come up with, but I would venture to guess that 5 out of 5 people you might ask would say it's having a supportive group of like-minded individuals around me. Now, I can't prove that because I haven't done a whole lot of research about that. I just have a gut feeling about it. But Napoleon Hill has done a ton of research starting in the very early 1900s. And he studied a whole bunch of successful people back then. And his research culminated in a book called Think and Grow Rich. And there's nothing new about this book. It was published in 1937. Yet one of the principles he discovered when he studied hundreds of people who were successful and even more people who weren't successful to find out what was the distinction, he found out that when you have a group of like-minded people surrounding you, helping and supporting you with taking your dreams and goals and ideas maybe to the world and maybe not. Maybe it's because you realize that your idea was kind of crazy. But without that group around you, it's pretty hard to either go forward or decide not to. He called that the mastermind. And so I am really fascinated by that concept of the power of the mastermind. And I am finding that in my own life, I can't dispute that fact that when I've been the most successful, when I've accomplished the goals and dreams I have, whether for any part of my life, my business, my exercise, my health, my finances, anytime I had what I would call a measurable success, a victory, it was because I had somebody around me, either helping me and supporting me for my idea or helping me see what I couldn't see for myself. That trusted group of advisors really gave me another opportunity that I couldn't have seen for myself. So Napoleon Hill calls that the power of the mastermind. It's one of the chapters in the book, Think and Grow Rich. And what I'm learning about that principle through my own experience of having been with a group of people for 12 years every Saturday morning is that as we get to know each other on a different level than just a surface conversation, we can see things for each other that none of us could see for ourselves through our own eyes. There's a difference between perception, the way I see things, and perspective from where I see them. And I'm doing the best I can with what I know because I see the world through my own eyes. But my mastermind, the people around me, the people who are dedicated to my success, give me opinions and viewpoints that are not from my own perception. And what that does is it expands everything about the way I can live my life. And that's what the mastermind can do. Now, this group of people, we've been meeting for 12 years every Saturday morning in person in Fargo, North Dakota, where I live. And we don't come every single week, and sometimes people come in and come out. There's a core that has stayed together for all that time. We've supported each other through births and deaths and victories and failures. And we continue to show up for each other because we know, like, and trust each other. And that mastermind principle is more valuable than I can even express. There's power in it. When I think about the word power, then, I think of it in a distinct way from what I would call force. So sometimes we force people to do things and we force ideas and we think this is what we should do. As Tony Robbins tells us, we should all over ourselves and each other. So there's a way to do things and to make things happen that we can force. And there's another way that we can allow things to happen by connecting with our internal power. And so when I talk about power and I think about that for myself, I've created an acronym that helps me remember the distinction between outside motivation and inside inspiration. Now, disclaimer, I'm an English major, so that may or may not give you a different perspective about me. I love words, and so I love acronyms. And so the acronym I created for Power is purpose, open-mindedness, wisdom, energy, responsibility. And so when we break down each of those 5 areas into the purpose, which is the answer to the question why am I doing this? Why is this important? O, I notice if I'm open to possibilities or if I'm closed to probabilities. That will expand my opportunities if I'm open-minded. Wisdom is using what I've learned in the past to take me forward in a new direction. Now, sometimes wisdom is what you learn after you think you know it all. And that is very helpful to understand with the power of a mastermind group. The E is energy. If you understand energy, it's not something you can touch, but you can sure feel it. And so there's energy in a room. There's energy in a study. There's energy around a lot of things we may take for granted where the mastermind can help. And then the R is responsibility. The 10 2-letter words that will rock your world are, if it is to be, it is up to me. And if I take responsibility for the results I'm producing and creating in my life, I have far less to be a victim about than if I were hoping and waiting and looking for someone else to give me the direction or the permission. So this is what I've experienced and continue to experience in the presence of my mastermind group. Now, Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich defined the mastermind principle. He said there are 2 characteristics of this mastermind principle, one of which is economic in nature and the other psychic. He says the economic feature is obvious. Economic advantages may be created by any person who surrounds himself or herself with the advice, counsel, and personal cooperation of a group of people who are willing to lend wholehearted aid in a spirit of perfect harmony. That might be obvious. This form of cooperative alliance has been the basis of nearly every great fortune. Your understanding of this great truth may definitely determine your financial status. So, economic in nature. But on the other hand, there's a second characteristic of the mastermind principle, which he calls psychic. And he says the psychic phase of the mastermind principle is much more abstract, much more difficult to comprehend, because it has reference to the spiritual forces, which the human race as a whole is not well acquainted. Now, this was in 1937 when this book was published, and I would say we're still not well acquainted with this spiritual dimension, especially as it relates to our work. He says, you may catch a significant suggestion from this statement. No 2 minds ever come together without thereby creating a third, invisible, intangible force, which may be likened to a third mind. And when you think of the mastermind in that way, and you're in a conversation with people in a spirit of harmony where you're listening intently, you're present to what they're speaking about, and you feel like, oh my gosh, I have an idea that I just need to share. You didn't have that idea before the 2 or 3 or 5 of you came together, because it was created by the dialogue and the exchange. That's the power of the mastermind. The greatest of all of us coming together when we're in that spirit. So it's difficult to point it out and to say, there it is. Yet, if you've experienced it ever in a conversation, a true dialogue with someone else, you'll know it. And that's the power of the mastermind. So right now, this is theory because I'm just telling you about it. I would love to invite you to get into a conversation with someone you respect and admire, someone who may or may not think exactly like you do. In fact, it may be better if you don't think exactly alike, yet you're like-minded. Does that make sense? You can respect each other's differences. You can disagree with each other without being disagreeable. That's a spirit of harmony. So when you come together with that intent, you will be amazed at what can happen when each of you suspends your previous assumptions in that time you're together so that you can learn from each other. That's the definition I use for dialogue. We're so used to discussing things with people or debating about issues. And I believe that there's another way to have a conversation when we agree to suspend our previous assumptions in order to learn. And I call that dialogue. That's when the mastermind is invited in. And that's the power of this principle. So let's talk again. I would love to give you more information in form and provide some inspiration in spirit as we continue to explore this concept of the power of the mastermind. Thanks, everybody. This has been Jody Bach, Dean of LifeWorks University. Talk to you again.